78a. 6 lines from the top. Okay, we thank Hashem that we're able to learn. As we're learning, we should have the base of Mikdash immediately. Say Tana Rabbana was taught in a brisa. Regarding the Mitzri, it says, Leisasav Mitzri, the children that are born to them, the third generation, can come into the congregation of Hashem. So there's a double expression. It says children, and then it says third generation. Morning. Could say the third child, or it could say the generations that are born to them. Why is it switching? So it says like this. Okay. It goes back and forth, the questions here. It says, let's say we just say the children that are born to them. So then we would have thought, let's say he has 3 children. The third child would be mutter. Son number 3. Marion, it has to say generations. If it would say generations, which that would resolve that, but it wouldn't say the children. I would have thought the third generation from the giving of the Torah. It's interesting. I would have thought that after that, there's no problem. 3 generations from now. So it has to tell me that no, the children that were born from them, you start counting 3 generations. So it restarts every convert. His own counting. Everyone has their own counting. It's not like we count from now 3 generations. Okay, now it says, she says lahem twice. It says banim asher yivoldu lahem, the children that are born to them. Dar shlishi yavei lahem b'kal Hashem. See that it says twice the word lahem, to them. The third generation to them. So the Gemara tells us that lahem mehem mana, that it means you count from them. And lahem halach acher pisulam. You attribute the worst situation to them. Now, what does that mean? It means if you would have a father and a mother, each one has, let's say, the father is a Mitzri, and the mother is a Yisraelis. Say, well, we follow the mother. Say, no. Halach acher pisulam, whichever one has the problem, that problem carries over. Yeah. It doesn't go away because they married someone else. Or the opposite. If it's a Jewish man marries an Egyptian woman, halach acher pisulam, you follow the mother there.
This is regards to the 3 nations, the Mitzrayim, the Edomites.
Yeah.
But that would be a prohibited marriage.
Yeah, be a prohibited marriage. The question is, how do you attribute, to whom do you attribute the nationality or the, or those types of things? Like for Judaism, we follow the mother, right? That makes a person Jewish. What about for being a Kohen or a Levi? We follow the father. So when it comes to these things, who do you follow? The Mitzri, Daimi, or all of this. So it says halach acher pisulam. Always the worst ends up coming down to the child.
Could this also be like the first generation Mitzri marries the second generation Mitzri?
Yeah, that we're going to see soon. That's going to show up. That's possibly not part of this.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we'll see that.
So was Herod considered a
Herod was a slave that converted it, right?
But it wasn't a third generation.
No, was he from Edom? He was Herod was a Dumian, right? It means Edom. And so he's not allowed to come in for, is that what it says? 3 generations?
Yeah.
Has any aspect of this survived down to today in Halakha?
Well, in the Shulchan Aruch, they quote the Rush that since Sancherib has mixed up the nations, we don't have. Yeah, so what aspect would have?
Sankerib preceded the writing of the Mishnah by quite a while, didn't he?
Right.
So this was already historical by the time this discussion occurred.
That's interesting.
Is it the same for Sardin Halakha? Do you know?
I think it was the Mechaber that quoted the Rush.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. I forget where it was, the beginning of Ebenezer, Simon Dalet, hey,
Yeah.
Gimel, I don't remember. Yeah, that's a good point. So now it says, it has to say children that are born, and then it has to say to them. Because of Rahmana, if the Eberster would have said Asher Yivoldu, that were born, Havamina Mibnei Amana, I would have thought that you have to count from the children. So child is, the person converts, then he has a child, that's not generation 1. It says no, because Rahman Allahem, that's the child is generation 2, not generation 1. Because Rahman Allahem, if it would have said Lahem without Asher Yivoldu, Banim Lahem, Havamina Mitzvus Mu Bereshin Eskarhi Ben Achad. I would have thought that if a pregnant Egyptian woman converts, we would think that maybe the child that's born after the conversion, she was pregnant, and after the conversion, the child's born. I could have thought that maybe that child is still a first generation. Because Rahman Asher Yivoldu says, no, that was born. That child is a second generation. Wow. The conversion inside is not counted. The child converted, but he's still considered born. He's not considered a convert. He's considered born. It's a big chiddush. You got to think about this because a convert doesn't have a child, doesn't have a bris on the 8th day. They have a bris whenever they convert. A Jewish child has a bris on the 8th day. What happens if a woman converts while she's pregnant? So there's a child. The child has a bris. That's a bris of a conversion, I think. Or maybe not. The child the child converted with his mother, and I mean the tefillah he doesn't need because the tefillah worked. But do you need? Oh well, it would have to go in order. It would have to go. This is a machlekes in the Rishonim how this works. Yeah, it's probably over here or earlier in Yevamos. Do you say that the bris that comes afterwards, it has to be in order. First Mila, then Tefillah. Here they did Tefillah, then the Mila. So if you say that the bris afterwards is a Jewish bris, right, then everything was in order. There was Tefillah, and now he's Jewish, and now you do the Mila. But if you say that the Mila after the mother went to the mikveh with the baby converting in utero, if you say that the Mila that's done when he's born is part of the circumcision, then you would require a tefillah afterwards. Yeah, and that we don't really say. So here what's coming out is that it's a full conversion inside. And then when he's born, it's which this fits, it does fit. When he's born, it's already a second generation. By the mamzer, it says Gam dar asiri lo yavai loi bikal Hashem. Even the 10th generation did not come to him. What does it mean to him? Over here, are we really counting 10 generations? No. We'll see in the next Mishnah that is, we say 10 generations, but we really mean forever. I would have thought that over here we say that we would follow the one that's puzzle, because by over here by the Egyptian and by the Jewish and the Jewish partner, we follow the one that's puzzle because one of them isn't Jewish. Aval mamzer the b'mitip kshera, but by the mamzer where the person is Jewish, a malay. Maybe we could say that you follow the Jewish side, not the one that has the problem. If we would say it by the mamzer, that you follow the one that's problematic, then we would say that that's because this is a very strict law where the person can never come into the congregation. However, by the Egyptian, where it does come into the congregation, maybe we could say you could speed it up if the partner had no issue. So it has to say it by both. So tzricha. Yeah. Amar Rabba Barbarchana Amar Rabbi Yechanan. Who asked this? Daniel, you asked this question. Mitzri Sheni Shenasa Mitzris Rishayna. We said that it takes 3 generations for an Egyptian to be allowed to marry into the congregation. What do they do before that? They marry another Egyptian convertess. Let's say there's a 2nd generation that married a 1st generation. Is the child the 3rd generation or is the child the 2nd generation? Do you follow the mother? And the mother was the 1st generation, so the child is the 2nd, or do you follow the father and the child is the 3rd? It says, B'nash Lishiu, follow the father. Alma Kasavar Basar Di Deisha Dinanlei. Obviously, the child follows the father. How do you determine if a person is a Mitzri or not? Forget about the conversion. Do you follow the father? Do you follow the mother? Let's say there's a marriage between a Mitzri and a, I don't know, Dutch. Is it a,
Or
do you follow the father and the mother?
between an Arab and a Jew, have exactly this issue all the time.
Yeah, the thing is, over there, I have the laws that Judaism follows the mother.
But the Arabs have a law that it follows the father.
Oh.
Right.
Oh. So but according to Jewish law, if 2 non-Jews get married, now usually you would say, well, it's not relevant, they're not Jewish. But it is relevant because which tribe they come from is going to change when they convert. If they have to wait 3 generations or not, if they're Egyptian or if there's something else. I think it says you follow the father. By the Goyim, it says, I think it says that. We'll see. Anyway, over here, we're saying that they converted and we're still following the father regarding this. Masav Rav Yosef, Rav Yosef has a question. Reb Tarfon says, how do you resolve the issue with someone's a mamzer? How do they purify their children? They shouldn't be mamzerim. So Reb Tarfon has a solution. He says, Kate said, how do you do this? Mamzer nasa shivcha havlat ever. If the mamzer marries a non-Jewish slave, that's the case. Would the mamzer need to be an Eved Ivri, or would this be allowed even if he's not? I mean, I know the Eved Ivri is allowed to marry the non-Jewish slave. Is the mamzer also allowed to marry the non-Jewish slave? Sounds like she's not Jewish. How could he marry her? It's his own non-Jewish maid? Oh, his own non-Jewish maid that he's allowed?
Marries a non-Jewish,
Oh,
his non-Jewish maidservant. The child born is a slave.
Uh-huh. Is that the rule that you're allowed to marry the maidservant? Is there a note on the side there?
It's long.
It's long. Let me see. Seems like a special exception. Special exception that the mamzer is allowed, even lechatchila, to marry the maidservant. And they write in the comments there that the halacha follows Reb Tarfon.
That's good.
So he marries his maidservant, and so Avlad Evet, the child is a Evet. Shichroi, he redeems the child. Nimtza ben chayrin. Now the child is a regular Jew. It's like a convert.
You laundered.
Laundered.
So money laundering.
Alma, however, over here we're seeing a problem. Basadi dasha dinan lei. Yeah, we follow her because we're saying that the child is becoming not a mamzer. The child is coming out being.
Not Jew.
Okay, the Gemara says, Shani Hasam Damarka Yisha v'Yaladat Yilad. And over there, it's a special pasuk. It says that the woman and her children stay to the master. That's how it works, which means that that's specific in that case where the child follows the mother. However, in other cases, it could be the child would follow the father, like we would say by the Mitzri Sheni and the We had an instance in the Besdin where someone came to convert. A woman came to convert together with there was a Jewish man. Now after looking into it, we saw the Jewish man had a shaila of mamzerus. He could have been a mamzer. He told us a story. Anyway, the rabbi of Besdin was all excited about this. He said, because instead of doing a real conversion here, we could convert her to be a shifcha kananis. Then they wanted to get married. Then the children would be. Only problem is that American law would not allow slavery. They said, well, we could do it. If it's not the real slavery, it would just be halachically slavery, maybe. Anyway, so we started to look into the chuvas to see was this ever done before, in the recent years. And no one has written about it,
Really?
obviously, because you don't write that he made a slave. That wouldn't really work. So it turned out they ended up running to a different Besdin and doing it faster before we could work things out, and the whole thing got messed up. But they did a quicker convert. There's batidinim that do it faster than so. Okay, we consider that a mistake though. They shouldn't have. We could have resolved bigger issues. Okay, Massive Rava.
Could have gone to Morocco or someplace where slavery was permitted.
This goes back to the sale of chametz. They inform the government that the Jewish people are not paying taxes on the chametz. It's a huge sale, and they're not paying taxes. And the government said, this is by the Chassam Sofer, the government said it's not a sale, it's nothing. It's just a fake thing. So they told the Chassam Sofer it's not a sale. The government, and he explained that even though we don't need to pay taxes according to them because it's not a sale for them, but for us it is. For halacha it is. So somehow you could divide it up. Okay, Masiv Rava, Amar Rav Yehuda. Rav Yehuda says, Minyamin ger Mitzri, hayali chaver mitalmidi Rabbi Akiva. Minyamin was Egyptian convert. He was a friend from the students of Rabbi Akiva. V'amar, he said, Ani Mitzri Rishon, v'nasasi Mitzri Rishayna, asi livni Mitzri Shniya. Now his expression is a little bit problematic according to what Rabbi Yochanan said. He says, my son is going to be a second generation and my son will marry a second generation. Why is that important? If his son would marry a first generation, it would still be a third generation, according to Rabbi Yochanan, because you follow the father. If you say you follow the father, then his son could have married a first generation. Gemara says, Rabbi Yochanan had already adjusted this. He told the Tana that said this over that he should read it that his son will marry a first generation, and then the grandson will be able to marry in. Okay. Apparently, we're following the father here. Well, the statement that we had before was from Rabba Bar Bachana in the name of Rabbi Yechanan. However, Rabbi Dimi in the name of Rabbi Yechanan says no, you follow the mother. And if the mother was a Mitzrius Rishayna, a first generation, then the child is going to be a second generation. Amalei Abaya. Abaya says, Elahadam Rabbi Yechanan. This that Rabbi Yechanan says, Hifrish Chatayis Muberes V'Yolda. The comparison here is very interesting. What the Gemara is doing. If someone separates a chatas, a sin offering, the chatas that he designated was a pregnant animal. Obviously, a female animal. A chatas is a female. And ratza miskaper bevlada. After it gave birth, he has an option. If he wants, he can marry the. If he wants, he can marry the. Not marry. I'm sorry. If he wants, he can offer the child up as a sacrifice. If he wants, he can offer up the mother as a sacrifice, right? Because he had designated a pregnant animal as a sacrifice, so there's a child in there that we're considering now independent, as if he had designated two. If you say that the child is independent from the mother, so then what happens if a person designates two animals for a sacrifice? He only has to offer one. The other one was there just in case. Yeah, say this like the husband goes to the store to buy something for his wife, but he doesn't know exactly which one. So he buys both, just in case.
So you could undesignate one of
No,
them?
it actually, the other one has to be, get a mum or something. What is it? A mum or put to death? Put out to pasture, and when it gets a mum, then you can. I think that's what he does. Yeah. So that's what happened here. He has two, and one of them is just in case. That's exactly what happens. You put it out to pasture. If we say that the fetus, the embryo, the fetus, right, is not independent. It's just like another limb of the mother animal. That's the case, then even though he designated it while it was pregnant, but nevertheless, it was still considered one entity. And now when it gives birth, it's called Vlad Chatas. See, we have this halach in another case. That's the thing. We have this halach if someone designates a Chatas and then it becomes pregnant. It started off, it wasn't pregnant. Then it becomes pregnant after the designation and then it gives birth. Then we have this other halacha that Vlad Chatas Lemisa, that the offspring is put to death. However, what happens if he designated it while it was pregnant? Then has he just designated one lachrayas? Is it an independent entity? Or is it just another limb of the mother? And it's the same thing that as if he designated it before it got pregnant.
We always joke with a little bit pregnant, but considering all the abortion discussions nowadays in the news and this, at what point is the fetus viable on its own? It would sound to me if the fetus is still dependent on mother, meaning that if the mother would die, that fetus is still like very early, couldn't live. Then it's like a limb of the mother. But if it was late pregnancy, then it would be an independent and not like a limb.
Right.
Is that in civil law or?
I'm just talking about biology. It's a different time. Fetus can't survive that long if it's first trimester or something. But if it's 7, 8 months, 9, and God forbid something happens. I mean, equivalent time.
Yeah. I hear what you're saying. That would be a solution. That would be a way of resolving. The Gemara has a big question. Uber Yerachimai, you want to say that it's just dependent on how long, how developed. The Gemara is doing here is very interesting. The Gemara is saying is that if we're asking, who do we follow? Does the child follow the father? Does the child follow the mother? So if we say Uber Yerachimai, that the embryo is just a limb of the mother has an arm, it also has a leg, it also has an embryo, but it's really one big mother. So then obviously when it comes out, when it's separated, then we're following the mother. But if we say Uber Lav Yerachimai, the child is independent, then that would mean that we follow the father. The child is independent. It happens to be a piece of the father is in the mother that's hanging out over there, and it develops. So here's what we're asking. You quoted Rabbi Yochanan saying that you follow the mother. That's the way Rav Dimi put it, that you follow the mother. The problem is that I have a statement from Rabbi Yochanan that Uber Lav Yerachimai, that the embryo is not part of the mother. That means that you follow the father. Now I know it's regarding an animal, but whatever the case is, I'm seeing Uber Lav because in order for it to be a designated, an option of designating either the mother or the animal as the carbon, I would have to say that they were two independent entities. If they're two independent entities, then obviously it's not considered attached. It's not attached, then it should really be following the father. Ishtik. I think that means Rav Dimi. Rav Dimi was quiet. Amalei Dilma Shani Hassam Diksiv Ashi Yivoldu. Akasav Talabeleda says, you know what? Maybe what you really meant to say was really Uber Lav Yerachimai. Really, you should follow the father. However, because by the pasuk, by the Mitzri, it says that will give birth. So that's a special pasuk that tells me that we follow the birth mother, the birthing of it, which means it follows the mother that will give birth. Amarlei, Rav Dimi says, Karkafna. What does that mean? Smart one or something? Great person. Distinguished one. Chazise l'reishach beni amudei kiyamar Rabbi Yochanan lahashmaita. Time of the ksiva sheyivolda balma basavur shedinana. This is not your own comment. I saw your master, or I saw your head between the pillars when Rabbi Yochanan was saying this. And that's exactly what he said. Now, the commentaries here say that Abaye really never went to Eretz Yisrael and never saw Rabbi Yochanan. So it means his head means Rabbah. And apparently there's a Gemara that says Rabbah went to Eretz Yisrael and learned by Rabbi Yochanan. And now, this is like a very interesting thing we have to figure out historically. I would have just said that he's saying it figuratively. He's saying, "Oh, this is how did you get this? This is exactly where what Rabbi Yochanan said." Yeah, but the commentators don't learn it like that.
That's how the corn learns it.
Oh, really? That is saying figuratively?
Yeah, as though you were actually present in the study hall and heard the
That's
statement.
great. That's great. Yeah, I was imagining it's like remember the story with the with Reb Zusha? There was someone, his father was coming to him in a dream, telling him that he should shmad, he should convert. So he went to Reb Zusha, and Reb Zusha said there may be a cross inside the grave. Go check it out. So they dug up the grave of the father, and they found that there were coins that had a cross on it that had fallen out from the grave diggers. So they took it out, and anyway, they said the story over to the Gra, and the Gra said, "I'm not impressed. It's a Yerushalmi. It's not a miracle. It's clear in the Yerushalmi." So comes back to Reb Zusha. Reb Zusha says, "It happens to be that I didn't know the Yerushalmi, but I got it where the Yerushalmi got it from." Anyway, yeah, Rabbi Zevin wrote the story, and apparently Rabbi Zevin was in Yechidus with the Rebbe, and the Rebbe asked him, "Where's the Yerushalmi?" So it wasn't the Yerushalmi either. I don't know. but yeah, that's what we're saying over here, that Abaya got it like back, he was as if he was there by Rabbi Yochanan. Yeah. If this is the case, you want to tell me that really uber lav yarachimai, the child is not a limb of the mother. Child is independent. So how does a woman go to the mikveh when she's pregnant and it's a conversion for the child? Why doesn't the child need tefillah? Maybe we'll say, you know what, you're right. The child is not a limb of the mother. But what's the problem? The child was in the water. So, well, but there's a chatzitza. So, well, maybe a chatzitza is only a problem if she doesn't want it. What's covering? But here she wants her stomach and womb attached. So it's not considered a chatzitza. Gemara says, but this concept of if you want it there, if you don't want it there, that's only if it's not fully covering. But something that's entirely covered, you can't say, well, I'm not makbid on it. If it's entirely covered, then it's entirely covered. The water didn't get to it. So Gemara says, Shani uber dainu Rabbi say, that's different because this is the way it grows. Hainu Rabbi say. Rabbi say means that's how it grows, so that's not considered a chatzitza. Yeah. I mentioned once that we had an issue with someone wanted to convert the children, a Jewish man and a Jewish woman. They had in vitro fertilization, and the children were not Jewish. The biological donor. No, she was. Oh, I'm sorry. It wasn't. She was just a carrier. She was just they got an egg also. I'm sorry. It was an implant. What do they call it when they take an egg and they? Okay.
Oh, so the Jewish mother was carrying.
The Jewish mother was just a carrier.
Oh, so
right. So we don't really have a clear rule on this. We don't have a clear rule. So to be careful, they have to go to the mikveh after they're born. So we tried to figure out, let's say the mother would go to the mikveh before they're born. Now, when a non-Jewish mother converts, the children inside are converted.
Oh, so it's a
But here the mother's Jewish and she's going to the mikveh. Now, the problem is that she's not converting. The mikveh is nothing for her. Is it that because it works for the mother, it works for the child, and here there's no mother converting, so it doesn't work? Or do we say that it doesn't matter? It's just the mikveh goes to. It's an interesting question.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. Anyway, no. It was a complicated issue. I remember I was working on this a little bit. Okay. Ravina says in the name of Rabbi Yochanan. This can't be Ravina. It means Ravin. Ravin. Rav Dimi says things in the name of Rabbi Yochanan. Rabba Barbachana is the name of Rabbi Yochanan. And Ravin was a traveler also. Ravin was more accepted. When Ravin comes, he says in the name of always when it comes to nations of the world, we want to know which nation the person belongs to, you follow the father. Nisgairu, but once they convert, halachachar pagam shebishneim, you follow the one that's worse off. But where do we get this from? Hear what's going on? Someone from the 7 nations, you're not supposed to let them live. We're supposed to wipe out the 7 nations when we came into the land of Israel. So let's say some other fellow, Dutch, comes to the land of Canaan, and he lives with a Canaanite woman. So there's a child. Is the child a Dutch or is the child a Canaanite? So it says it's not a problem because even from those people that dwell with you, Mehem tiknu. You could buy from them. This is Bnei Teshavim. Who is the mother? The mother is a local. So a local woman, Canaanite woman, has a child from a Dutch or whatever. So then the child is not considered Canaanite. However, let's say there's a Canaanite man that lives with a Dutch woman. So can you buy that child as a slave and keep them? It's the ones that are born in your land. Now the women stay put. The men travel around. So what's born in your land means that if the woman is from your land, you can buy them, but not if it's born outside your land from someone from your land. That would not work. Yeah, I think they say people move further away from their home. Men move further away depending on their how far they go in university. The higher the degree, the further they move. That's what they say. Yeah. No degree is they stay put. They still live in the in the basement. But you've been all over, so you've moved to everywhere.
I was from the Bronx. I was born in the Bronx. But you went to YU, which is in the Bronx.
Okay. Niskairo. They converted. We're continuing what Rabbi Yochanan taught us. You follow the one that's worse off. B'mai, what are we dealing with? Means if there's two people that converted.
Yeah.
And one of them belongs to this nation. One of them belongs to that nation. One of those that nation has a problem. We can't have to wait 3 generations. So that's the one that's worse. The other one is. So the one that's worse off, that's the one that, yeah. What are we talking about? Are you saying that it's a Mitzri Shanasa Aminus, that a Mitzri marries a Aminus woman? Now we said only Amin has the problem, not Aminus, not the women. So my Pagam Shebishneim, what does it mean that worse off? Ispa, Amaini V'lei Aminus. It's not even Pagam at all. This woman is perfectly fine. Ella ba'amayni shenasa mitzvahs. We're talking about that they both have a problem. What is that? A man from Amain, which is never allowed to marry into the congregation, marries a woman that's a mitzvah, which has to wait 3 generations. So then, izachar have, if it's a man, the boy, if it's a boy, so shadi basar Amaini, then we say the boy is from Amain. Inekeva have, if it's a girl, Aminus doesn't have any problem. So Shadi Basi Mitzvahs, we say that it's a mitzvah. Yeah.
Tricky.
Yeah. This is a double standard.
I was just gonna say that.
Okay.
The girl follows the mother and the boy follows the father. That makes sense. That's perfectly.
Yeah. Yeah, that's another way of looking at it. We weren't really saying that. We were saying that we just follow the one that's worse off.
It says more flawed.
More flawed.
Never
Yeah.
stops sense.
Flawedest. Okay.
Flawed lineage.
The Mishnah says, "Mamzerim unasinim asurim v'yisur nesraelim echad zchar v'echad nekeves." A mamzer and a nasin. A nasin were those people from the tribe of Gergashi or Chivi that they ended up converting, and it was a trick. They weren't really. We weren't really supposed to accept them, but they tricked us, and so we said that they weren't allowed to get married into the people. Now a mamzer also, and it doesn't matter whether it's a male or female of a mamzer or a nasin. Amarish Lakish. Shlakish says mamzeres la'achar asara deres muteres. Huge chiddush. A mamzer or a mamzeres are not allowed to get married into the people. However, However, the pasuk doesn't say that. The pasuk says only 10 generations can't marry him. So comes along, it says Gam Rasiri Lo Yavai, even a 10th generation. Now comes along Rish Lakish and says that it doesn't say in the pasuk Ad Olam forever. It only says 10 generations. But I get the Ad Olam from another pasuk, because it says by Amayni, it says Gam Darasiri. It also says the 10th generation, but then it says Ad Olam, forever. So now the question is, when I do this comparison between Amayni and Mamzer, that it really goes on forever, what do I take from Amayni? Do I take the males who have the issue, but the Amayni females never had an issue, so therefore a Mamzeres is fine? Or do I say that if I'm taking from Amayni, that it means forever, and I apply it to Mamzer, then it applies to both Mamzer and Mamzeres?
Why can't you say that by Amoni it's a prachi or something, whatever, and that was the extra exclusion just to that? Why do you automatically say, oh, because they both say
This Xer Shava. We do a
but
comparison.
one has an extra clause.
Yeah, so that extra clause is taught over there, and it ends up coming and teaching it over there.
I thought you can't do that. I think that's the wrong one.
No. It's that if I have a law in one, and I have a Xer Shava comparison between the two, I'm going to end up applying the law that applies to one to the one that it's compared to. So here, Yalef Asiri Me'amayni Umayavi. We learn 10th generation from Amayni Umayavi. Malahala Nekevus Mutaris Afkan Nekevus Mutaris. Take a look. By Aman and Mayav, the females are mutter. So therefore, after the 10 generations by a Mamzeres is also mutter. It says Imala Halan Miyad Afkan Miyad. So maybe you want to say that a Mamzeres is mutter right away, because over there the females are permissible right away. It says Kiyahani Gzeir Shava Masir Velach. I never needed a Gzeir Shava for the first 10 generations. I only needed after that. But after that, it's only the males, not the females. We didn't say that in our Mishnah. Our Mishnah says that it's prohibited forever. Mamzerim, I guess, would mean the plural of male and female. Gemara says like kasha. It's not a question. It's a machlekes. There's a question of how to learn a Gzeir Shava. Do you take it entirely from its place and keep it in its initial rule, or do you take it and you apply it the way it would be applied here? So if you hold dun minei that you take it the way it is in its initial place, that means Amain and Mayav have a prohibition forever, but that's only on the males. So when we apply it here, a mamzer is prohibited forever, only the males. Or do we say that dun minei v'kabasrei, I take the rule from there and I apply it the way it would fit here, which over here it applies to male and female. So I'll take that rule and apply it here, and then it's going to be male and female. So that's a machlekes, our Mishnah and Reish Lakish. Now Reish Lakish doesn't argue with our Mishnah. Reish Lakish is just accepting a view of dun minei, while our Mishnah accepts the view of dun minei v'kabasrei. So it's not like Amir is arguing with the Mishnah. It's a much earlier machlekes, and they're just siding in that. Okay. Shalos Rabbi Eliezer, Mamzeres Lachar Sar Darimahu. Mamzeres after 10 generations, what's the halacha? I wonder if it's really Rabbi Eliezer. It's probably Rabbi Lazar. Do you have Rabbi Lazar or Rabbi Eliezer? Eliezer. Interesting. Amalahem miyitin lidar shlishi v'atareno. It's not even possible. Give me a 3rd generation, and I'll make her pure, which means they're not going to survive. Alma kasavar mamzera lechayi. He must hold that a mamzer can't survive, doesn't live. Now, how does that work? One second. We said that it goes on forever. The yadi chayid la yadi la chayid. If you know about them, then they survive. But if you don't know about them, then some sort of mishap happens and accident. God makes it work out that they don't survive.
It says plague.
Plague.
Hanina says that every 60 or 70 years, a plague strikes the world, wipes out among them the Mamzerim, among the Jews.
Uh-huh. The yediyah v'la yediyah. Let's say it's known but not known. Then it's ad plus adari chai, tzvei chai. Then 3 generations could survive after that not. Ehuda havi b'shvivusei the Rabami achazaleh the mamzera. Hava the mamzera. They announced that he was a mamzer. Oh boy, Hava bachi vazal, he was crying. So Amalei chayim nasatila. Why are you crying? We gave you life. Why? Because if he's known that he's a mamzer, then he lives. If he's not known, then he has some accident and he dies. So they gave him life. He shouldn't be crying.
That means his children will survive, or that he will survive. He and his descendants may survive.
Yeah, as long as it's known. I think we should stop here. We have the story of the Gevinim coming up, but it's a long story. So let's leave it over here.
Yeah.
Okay.